My name is Noelle Lucas. I'm 16 in this part of the story. And I didn't realize my life was about to split into a before and an after until a thick envelope showed up on a Sunday morning, right in the middle of my mom's chocolate pancakes. Back then, my whole world was pretty simple: school, helping my mom, and trying not to set off my dad. My mom, Talia, worked part-time at a clinic. She was the kind of woman who could smile through exhaustion like it was a skill she'd mastered to keep the house standing. My dad, Bennett, owned a small contracting business and acted like that made him king of everything. Our kitchen, our schedule, our air. I didn't have a job yet, just chores, homework, and the quiet art of staying out of the way when Bennett came home in a mood. That was the setup. Sunday morning changed everything. Mom was at the stove humming under her breath, flipping pancakes like she could make the world soft again if she got the batter just right. The kitchen smelled like chocolate and warm sugar, but there was still this tension underneath it, like a wire stretched too tight. Bennett's chair at the table was empty, again. Another weekend of running errands. The same vague line. Got things to handle. No details. No eye contact. Just gone. Looking back, the flags weren't even subtle. His voice had gotten colder, clipped answers, like every word cost him something. His phone was always face down. Nights stretched later. He'd drop his keys, disappear into the bedroom, then sometimes leave again, without explaining where he was going. The house didn't feel like home to him anymore. It felt like a stop. But at 16, you don't always connect the dots. You just feel the distance and tell yourself it'll snap back into place because the alternative is too ugly to imagine. Mom slid a plate toward me and forced this small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Eat before it gets cold," she said. She looked tired. Not normal tired. Worn down at the edges tired, the kind that doesn't go away with sleep. She tried to hide it from me, but I'd learned how to read her the way you read weather. The tiny pauses, the way her shoulders held stress like extra weight. I sat down, picked up my fork, and tried to pretend we were just a normal family having a normal morning. Then the doorbell rang. I honestly assumed Bennett forgot his keys and needed someone to rescue him from his own carelessness, because that was the kind of thing he'd do, and then somehow still blame us for. So I got up without thinking. When I opened the door, it wasn't him. It was a man in a plain jacket holding a tablet and a thick envelope, the kind that looks official before you even read it. "Delivery for Talia Lucas," he said. My stomach dipped for no logical reason. Just instinct, like my body knew before my brain did. Yeah, that's my mom," I said and called over my shoulder. "Mom?" She walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. She still smelled like chocolate and warm batter. She thanked the guy like she always did. Polite, automatic, kind even when she didn't need to be. She signed the tablet. He handed her the envelope and left. Mom brought it to the table like it was just more mail, just another boring adult thing. She didn't sit right away. She tore it open, standing up, like she wanted to finish it fast and go back to pretending. The first page showed, and everything inside her collapsed. I had never seen my mother fall apart like that. It wasn't quiet crying. It wasn't delicate. It was full body shaking, like her bones couldn't hold her grief in place. Her hand went limp. Papers hit the table. She sank into Bennett's empty chair like her knees gave out, and that chair was the only thing keeping her from the floor. Her breathing turned uneven. She covered her mouth like the sound she was trying to hold back was too big to let out. "Noelle," she whispered. But nothing came after that. Just her staring at the pages like they were poisonous. I walked around the table, my heart pounding so hard it felt loud in my ears, and I saw the title on the first page. Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. Like words on paper could be wrong if you stared hard enough. But then I saw the signature at the bottom. Bennett Lucas. It didn't even look real. Not for a second. Not when Mom started shaking harder. Not when her tears fell onto the paperwork. Not when I touched the page and felt how normal it was, how plain, how thin. Mom, what is this?" I said, but my voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. She shook her head like she couldn't make language work. Tears kept coming, nonstop. The pancakes on the stove were burning, and she didn't even turn around. She had suspected something. Distance, maybe cheating, the way he stopped looking at her like she was a person. But this? She had no idea he'd gone this far. This wasn't an argument. This wasn't a threat. This was him pulling the floor out from under us and calling it a decision. She was discovering the truth in real time, and it broke her in a way I didn't know a person could break. I grabbed my phone. I didn't know what else to do. My hands were shaking, but I tried to type. And right then, my phone buzzed. A text from Bennett. "Sorry you had to find out that way. I'll explain later." That was it. No panic, no apology that meant anything. No, are you okay? No, I'm sorry. Just a message like he was rescheduling a dentist appointment. I looked at my mom, who was crying so hard she couldn't breathe right, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't confusion anymore. It wasn't even fear. It was the first moment I understood that Bennett didn't see us as people. We were just loose ends he wanted to cut clean. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't a mistake. He had planned this step by step while still eating the food my mom cooked, while still letting her believe they had something to save. And sitting there in that kitchen, I realized he didn't care who he crushed to get free. That was the morning I stopped viewing Bennett Lucas as my father. That was the morning I learned what betrayal actually looks like up close. The week after the papers arrived felt like someone turned the sound off in the house. Mom moved around like she was on autopilot, doing dishes, folding laundry, staring at nothing for long stretches. She talked only when she had to, short sentences, empty answers. I tried helping any way I could, but most of the time she didn't even seem to notice the world around her. 3 days in, I walked into the living room and found her sitting on the couch with her phone pressed to her ear. The coffee table was covered in papers, forms, envelopes, documents with legal stamps that made my skin crawl. She was talking to a lawyer, but the look on her face made it clear she barely understood anything he was saying. I don't know what that means, she said, rubbing her forehead. A proposed division of assets. Does that mean he already... She stopped. Her eyes shone, but she refused to cry again, like she'd used up all her tears in one day and didn't have any left to spend. I sat next to her, listening to her voice crack every few words. She thanked the lawyer, hung up, and let the phone rest in her lap like it weighed too much. I'm trying, she whispered, mostly to herself. I'm trying to keep up. Another envelope came the next morning. Same official print, same thick packet. Our county moved fast on the calendar, like the court system didn't care that a family was bleeding out in real time. I brought it inside, and when Mom saw it, her shoulders dropped. She didn't even open it right away. She just sat with it resting on her knees, staring at the flap like it might bite. Then quietly she said, "Can you sit with me?" So I did. And as she tore it open and more forms spilled out, mediation requests, financial disclosures, dates she needed to confirm, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't going to be one bad day. This was going to be a long, careful erasing, and we were only at the beginning. The next few days blurred together in a way that felt unreal, like we were living in a house that looked like ours, but didn't belong to us anymore. Mom kept moving, kept doing things, but none of it had weight. She washed dishes that were already clean. She folded laundry and forgot where she put it. She stared out the kitchen window like she was waiting for something to happen that would make this make sense. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence you get after something breaks, when you're still listening for the sound of it shattering, even though it already happened. Every time the mail slot clacked, Mom flinched. Every time her phone rang, she looked like she wanted to throw it across the room. But she answered anyway because that's what she did. She handled things, even when she was falling apart. One afternoon, I came home from school and found her at the dining table with a stack of documents spread out like a battlefield. Envelopes, forms, legal letters with barcodes, a yellow sticky note with someone's number written in shaky handwriting. She was on the phone again. I don't understand what that means, she said, voice low. Equitable division. But the deed is in both our names. Doesn't that count? There was a pause, and I watched her face change, like something cold moved through her. Oh, she whispered. So he already... Okay. I sat down across from her, my backpack still on, watching her nod slowly, as if she was trying to stay calm through sheer willpower. She thanked the lawyer, hung up, let the phone rest in her hand like it was too heavy. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she whispered, almost like she wasn't talking to me at all. I'm trying to keep up. I didn't know what to say. There weren't words big enough for what was happening. Because it wasn't just a divorce. It was Bennett reaching into our lives and pulling out the parts he knew mattered most, one by one, like he was unmaking us. The next morning, another envelope arrived. Mom didn't even pretend she wasn't scared of it. She sat at the table with it in front of her, hands on either side, staring at it like it might explode. Can you sit with me? She asked quietly. So I sat, and she opened it slowly, like she was afraid of what she'd find inside. More paperwork spilled out. Requests for mediation. Financial disclosure forms, court dates, deadlines. Her lips moved as she read, like she was translating each sentence into something a human heart could survive. Every few minutes, she asked me what something meant. Not because she thought I knew, because she needed someone there to keep her from disappearing into the panic. I stayed, I pointed at lines. I shrugged when I didn't understand. I nodded when she talked. I did everything I could to make her feel less alone in it. But the real punch didn't come from those papers. It came later that afternoon. Mom sat at the computer and motioned for me to come over. "We should check the accounts," she said. Her voice was careful. The way you speak when you already suspect the answer, but you're still praying you're wrong. We logged into the household banking login, one we'd had forever, from back when Bennett still pretended we were a team. I watched the screen load. Checking account. Savings. Then the one I hadn't looked at in years, the parent-owned education account. My college fund. It wasn't a number I stared at every day, but I knew it existed. I knew it was the one thing Mom clung to whenever money got tight, whenever the car needed repairs, whenever the roof leaked, whenever bills stacked up. "That's for you," she would say, like a promise, like a lifeline. Mom clicked into it, and the number on the screen made my vision blur for a second. Zero. Not low, not partially withdrawn. Empty. Mom made a sound like she'd been punched. She covered her mouth and leaned forward, elbows on the desk, like her body was trying to protect her from the shock. That money was for you," she whispered. "Noelle, that was supposed to be safe." I stared at the screen. The blank zero where years of sacrifice used to be. The fund was in Bennett's name, parent-owned, which meant he could drain it, and no one had to ask me. No one had to warn Mom. No one had to care. We still had view access through the old login. Enough to watch the zero sit there like an insult. Not enough to touch anything. Mom's hands shook as she tried calling the bank. The representative's voice came through the speaker, calm and robotic, like this was just another Tuesday. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. "That account is under Mr. Lucas's name. He has full authority." Mom tried again, tried different words, tried sounding calmer, then more desperate. The answer didn't change. Rules were rules, and my future was gone. That night, dinner tasted like nothing. Mom barely ate. I barely chewed. I kept thinking about the way Bennett texted earlier. "Sorry you had to find out that way." He wasn't sorry. He was efficient. He had cut us off like you cut a string. Clean, fast, no hesitation. 2 days later, Mom came home from mediation looking like she'd been walking through rain without an umbrella. Her hair was slightly damp, her face was pale, and her hands trembled just enough that I noticed. She didn't even take off her shoes before she sank into the nearest chair. "What happened?" I asked. She took a breath, and it came out uneven. "He wants the house." I blinked, because for a second I thought I heard wrong. "What? He left. Why would he?" "He said," she cut in softly, like she couldn't stand repeating it, "that he paid for it. So, it's his." My throat tightened. "The deed has both our names," I said. "I know," she whispered. "But he brought bank statements. He's waving them around like proof." The mediator said our state does equitable division, not automatic 50-50. A judge could order a sale, then split whatever's left. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just stared at the floor like she was trying to understand how someone could go from sharing a life to stripping it for parts. "He already took your college fund," she said, voice thin. Now he wants this too. He wants everything." For the first time since the divorce papers arrived, Mom looked genuinely scared. Not scared like she was about to cry. Scared like she was watching the foundation crack under our feet. "I don't know what he's doing," she whispered. "I don't understand why he's trying to take everything." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. Something snapped in me, clean and sharp. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't shock. It was anger. Steady, focused. The kind of anger that doesn't scream. It decides. "He doesn't just want to leave," I said quietly. "He wants to erase us." Mom rubbed her forehead like she was trying to hold herself together with her fingers. "Noelle," she said, voice small, "what are we going to do?" I paced once, twice, feeling like my skin was too tight on my body. Then I grabbed my jacket off the hook. Mom looked up, startled. "Where are you going?" "To talk to him," I said. Her eyes widened. "Noelle, I'm done hearing everything through paperwork," I cut in. "I'm done watching you get blindsided. I'm done letting him make decisions about our lives like we're not even people." Mom's mouth opened, but she didn't speak. She just watched me with tired, heavy eyes. Then, slowly, she nodded once. Not approval. Not encouragement. More like surrender to the truth that this was happening whether we wanted it to or not. I took out my phone and texted Bennett. "We need to meet, face to face." He replied in minutes. Like he'd been waiting. "Afternoon, coffee place on 7th. Short. No emotion. Typical. By the time I got there, my hands were cold, even though the day wasn't. I stepped inside the cafe and scanned the room. And I spotted him immediately. Bennett was at a corner table. But he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him. My mom's age, polished, sharp haircut, expensive coat, expression like she'd practiced being calm in the mirror. And next to her was a girl, maybe 12, legs crossed, phone in hand, tapping like she owned the place. They looked like a family on a magazine cover, a family that had rehearsed being seen together. For a second, my brain tried to convince me I had the wrong table. Then Bennett looked up, and the girl glanced at him, then at me, and smirked like she already had an opinion. Bennett lifted his hand, not even standing. "Noelle," he said, "sit." My stomach dropped. Because something about the way he said it, like this was normal, like I was late to a meeting he scheduled, told me everything. He wasn't ashamed. He was prepared. And whatever was about to come out of his mouth was going to change the math of my entire life. I stood there for a second longer than I meant to. Not because I was scared, because my brain was trying to catch up with what my eyes were already telling me. Bennett sat there like he belonged, relaxed, coffee untouched, elbow hooked over the back of his chair like this was his space, his moment. The woman beside him leaned in just slightly, close enough to signal intimacy, far enough to look composed. And the girl, God, the girl, barely looked up from her phone, like I was an interruption. I forced my feet to move. Each step toward that table felt heavier than the last. I stopped across from them. Bennett didn't stand, didn't hug me, didn't even pretend. "This is Karen," he said casually, gesturing to the woman, my wife. The word hit harder than I expected. Wife. "And this," he added, nodding toward the girl, "is Vesper, your half-sister." For a second, everything in the cafe went quiet. Not literally, but in that way where your ears ring and the world narrows to one point. Half-sister. I looked at her again, really looked this time. She couldn't have been younger than 12, which meant the math slammed into me so hard I almost felt dizzy. This wasn't a family he built after leaving us. This was a family he built while living with us. More than a decade of lies. Karen smiled at me, soft and practiced, like she'd rehearsed it. "It's nice to finally meet you, Noelle," she said. "I've heard so much about you." Vesper finally looked up. She glanced at me, eyes sharp, then tilted her head. "She looks older in pictures," she muttered, not even trying to whisper. My jaw tightened. Bennett ignored it completely. Ignored me, really. "Your mom told you what's happening," he said, like we were discussing scheduling conflicts instead of the demolition of our lives. "Yeah," I said. "She also told me you're trying to take the house." He shrugged. "I paid for it. It's mine." It wasn't true. Not entirely. The deed had both their names. But he'd covered more of the payments, and he knew exactly how to weaponize that. Karen leaned forward, folding her hands like she was about to explain something simple to a child. "Noelle, you have to understand," she said. "Your dad didn't do anything to hurt you. He did what was necessary. Life isn't always fair." I felt heat rise in my chest. "He had responsibilities," she continued smoothly, "and sometimes families evolve." "Evolve?" I said. "You mean lie for years?" Karen gave a small pitying laugh. "Your mother knew things weren't working for a long time. It's not fair to blame Bennett for wanting stability." Stability. A whole other family behind our backs. Vesper snorted and went back to her phone. "Are you seriously mad about money?" she said. "He didn't owe you anything. Kids are supposed to figure their own stuff out." I stared at her. "You're 12, I said. She shrugged. "Doesn't make me wrong." Bennett didn't correct her. Didn't even blink. I turned back to him, my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. "You drained my college fund," I said. "That money was for my future." "It was in my name," he replied flatly. "You're acting like I stole from you." "You did," I said. He rolled his eyes. "Be grateful I put anything aside at all. You'll be fine. You're young. You bounce back." Karen nodded like this was wisdom. "Families change," she said again. "It's better this way." "For who?" I asked. "For everyone," she said, like it was solved. Vesper looked up again, louder this time. "This is honestly embarrassing. Dad tried to talk to you and you're acting like you're the only person who matters. My mom doesn't make scenes. Maybe take notes." Karen smiled at her. Proud. That was the moment something went cold inside me. Not hot anger. Cold clarity. Bennett checked his watch. "This is going nowhere," he said. "You need to accept reality, Noelle. I made my decision. You and your mother will adjust." Adjust. Like we were rearranging furniture. I pushed my chair back. The sound scraped too loud against the floor. "This was a mistake," I said. Bennett sighed like I'd inconvenienced him. "Grow up," Karen added. "Try being grateful," she said softly. "At least he's being honest now." Vesper smirked. "Bye, I guess." I didn't respond. I didn't look at any of them again. I walked out. Outside, the air felt sharper than it should have, like my lungs weren't ready for it. I pulled out my phone and texted Mom, on my way home. When I got there, she was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She looked up when I walked in, hope flickering across her face for half a second. I didn't drag it out. They were there, I said, all of them. Her face fell. I told her everything. How long the other family had been around. How Bennett shrugged off the savings. How Karen defended him like we were strangers causing trouble. How Vesper talked like she'd known me forever and already decided I wasn't worth anything. Mom pressed her lips together, nodding slowly, like she was bracing for each word. Then she broke, quietly. She covered her face and cried into her hands. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know. I sat beside her. She kept apologizing for things she never did. I took her hand and held it. We'll get through this, she said finally, voice shaking but determined. We will. That night, I sat on my bed staring at my laptop screen. Tuition numbers glowed back at me like they belonged to another world. A world where dads didn't steal futures and call it responsibility. Nobody was coming to fix this. Nobody was stepping in. It was on me. So the grind started. Scholarship applications, every single one I could find. After school, I stocked shelves at a hardware store. On weekends, I helped a neighbor with landscaping. Every dollar mattered. Every hour mattered. Because if Bennett thought erasing us would make us disappear, he was wrong. He just taught me how to survive without him. The divorce finalized the spring I turned 18. It happened fast. Too fast for something that destroyed a life so thoroughly. There were no temporary orders, no safety net, no pause button while we caught our breath. The court calendar moved like a machine that didn't care who got crushed underneath it. Bennett didn't even show up for the final hearing. He didn't need to. He already had what he wanted. The house was ordered to be sold. The judge didn't care that both names were on the deed. In our state, they looked at contributions, and Bennett's paperwork was enough to force a sale and split whatever scraps were left. After fees, after costs, after everything he drained first, Mom got almost nothing. Child support was minimal and short-lived, just enough to look fair on paper. Custody didn't matter by then. I was old enough to choose, and I chose my mom without hesitation. We moved into a small rental closer to her work. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, old carpet that never quite smelled clean no matter how much you vacuumed. Mom tried to stay upbeat, but I saw the cracks. Late night crying she thought I couldn't hear. Stacks of paperwork she hid when I walked into the room. The way she flinched every time the phone rang. Still, she showed up for me in every way she could. She helped me fill out applications, sat beside me while I typed scholarship essays, told me she was proud even when I didn't feel like there was anything to be proud of yet. I graduated high school with honors. There was no big party, no banners, no proud father shaking hands. Just Mom hugging me so tight it felt like she was holding on to a future she was terrified to lose. Bennett didn't come. I didn't expect him to. That summer before college, I worked everywhere that would take me. Morning shifts in a warehouse stacking boxes until my arms shook. Afternoon deliveries for a local supply company. Night security shifts at a construction site where the lights buzzed and time moved slow. By the end of each week, my body felt bruised from the inside out. But I kept going. I saved everything I could, keeping it in an account Bennett had no access to. I didn't trust anything tied to him. Not anymore. When my acceptance letter arrived, Mom cried again, this time from pride. Financial aid covered part of it, nowhere near enough. So I structured my life around survival. Campus job in the morning, shelving books, running errands for a professor, tutoring in the afternoons, math, English, anything that paid. Night shifts wherever I could get them. Warehouse, security, delivery routes. Every day was packed tight. No empty space, no room to fall. One week, the warehouse needed overnight coverage for a late shipment. I said yes. I always said yes. I figured I could grab coffee and stay awake for my morning exam. I was wrong. Around 7 in the morning, after 13 hours lifting boxes, I sat on my dorm bed just for a minute. The moment I blinked, everything went dark. I woke up at 11. The midterm was at 8. I sprinted across campus, heart pounding, lungs burning, and burst into Dr. Ortega's office. I explained everything. She listened without interrupting. Then she shook her head. She tapped the syllabus with her nail, right at the bold line near the top. No makeups except documented medical or religious conflicts with a dean's letter, she said. Work conflicts are not excused. You missed the exam, Noelle. No hesitation. No sympathy. I went to the scholarship office next. The advisor listened, scanned my file, then looked me dead in the eye. You can't afford mistakes, she said. One more academic slip and you may lose your scholarship. Thin ice. Again. I walked out with my stomach twisted into knots. That same week, Mom's car died on her way home from work. The repair bill wiped out almost everything I'd saved. I paid it anyway. She begged me not to. Said she could take the bus. Said she'd figure it out. I didn't let her. She'd struggled enough. A few days later, I came home to find Mom at the kitchen table, shuffling papers. She tried to slide one letter under a magazine when she saw me. I caught the heading before she could hide it. Overdue notice. She tried to smile, tried to tell me it was a mistake. Her hands shook too much to sell it. Something steady hardened in my chest. Not panic. Not fear. Resolve. I took extra hours wherever I could get them. I didn't complain. I didn't explain. I just worked. Around this time, I met Ethan. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't pretend my life was easy. He just noticed when I hadn't eaten, sat with me while I studied, let me sleep on his shoulder between shifts without asking questions. He was my boyfriend, not a rescuer, not a savior, just someone steady in a world that kept shaking. Meanwhile, Bennett's side played perfect family online. Karen posting vacations, Bennett smiling like nothing bad had ever happened. Vesper posting things like, some people don't know how lucky they are to have a stable dad. I stopped giving them space in my head. I worked. I studied. I survived. Semester after semester, I pushed through. By my second year, my routine ran down to the minute. I showed up early, stayed late, never missed class. Fear is a powerful motivator. Senior year came faster than I expected. Graduation day, the stadium was packed. I found Mom instantly, second row, crying before I even reached my seat. She waved so hard her program flew out of her hand. When they called my name, Noelle Lucas, honors, I heard her scream louder than the whole stadium. I walked across that stage calm and steady. Handshake, diploma, photo. Done. Afterward, Mom hugged me like she was afraid I might disappear. I'm so proud of you, she said. You did this without anyone's help. Not without anyone, I said softly. I had you. Later, walking to the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A screenshot from an aunt. Bennett had posted online. Couldn't be at my daughter's graduation today, but I'm proud. Hoping she reaches out soon. I laughed under my breath. The real victory wasn't the diploma. It was the plan I'd been quietly saving for. A plan with my mom's name on it. And Bennett would never see it coming. A few years after graduation, I didn't disappear. I clocked in. Every day. I built a quiet, stable life, the same way I'd built everything else. Slowly, carefully, without telling anyone who might try to take it from me. I worked my way into a solid position. Nothing flashy, just dependable. The kind of job where the numbers finally stopped making my chest tighten every time I checked my account. I saved. Not recklessly, not impatiently. I waited until the number looked like a real down payment, until closing costs wouldn't wipe me out, until my debt-to-income ratio wouldn't make an underwriter flinch. Then I started touring places. Small houses, old houses, the kind with good bones and tired hinges, places other people passed over. And then I found it. A quiet little house on a dead-end street. A front porch big enough for 2 chairs. A backyard with soil soft enough for a garden. Not fancy, not new, but solid. I bought it in my name. No shared ownership, no legal ties, no Bennett-shaped shadows. I didn't tell Mom. I picked her up after her shift one afternoon and drove her there without explaining. She frowned when I pulled into the driveway. Noelle, where are we? I shut off the engine and handed her the keys. It's yours, I said. She stared at them like they weren't real. What do you mean, mine? Ours, I corrected gently. But mostly yours. She stepped inside slowly. Sunlight spilled across the living room. Quiet walls, clean floors, no tension hanging in the air. She covered her mouth. Noelle, she whispered, I don't deserve this. I laughed, because if I didn't, I might cry. Mom, I said, you deserve 10 of these. I'm just starting with 1. She cried the right kind of crying. Relief. We walked through the rooms together, opening cabinets we'd already seen, touching walls like they might disappear. For the first time in years, I felt something like peace. Naturally, it lasted 24 hours. The next morning, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Notifications, tags, messages. I opened one. A post from Vesper. So proud of my dad for raising such a hardworking sister. She bought a house. Love this family. There was a picture of the house. My house. Comments poured in. Such a great dad. Family goals. You're so lucky to have him. I stared at the screen, stunned. Briggs texted me immediately. What is she doing? I typed back. Lying for likes. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. People like Vesper didn't want truth. They wanted attention. 2 days later, I was fixing a loose cabinet hinge when I heard a car door slam outside. I looked through the window and froze. Bennett stood in my driveway. Karen beside him. Vesper already stepping toward the porch like she owned it. The address was public record. If you wanted to find me, you could. Bennett smiled. It wasn't a real smile. There she is, he said. Our homeowner. I muttered. Karen swept up the walkway like she'd been invited. This place is adorable, Noelle, she said. Such a smart buy. Didn't ask, I replied. Vesper walked straight past me into the living room. I like it, she announced. Could use better furniture, though. I had propped the door open for air while I worked. She crossed the threshold without hesitation. I turned, calm. Cool, I said. You can go home and think about that from there. She frowned, genuinely confused. Bennett clapped his hands together. See, Karen? All those lessons I taught her stuck. Hard work pays off. I laughed. Lessons? I said. You taught me one thing. Don't end up like you. His smile cracked. Karen jumped in fast. What your father means? He means he wants credit, I cut in. And that's not happening. I paid for this house, I continued. I worked for it. Mom deserves it. Bennett's jaw tightened. We're just trying to celebrate you. Don't, I said. You don't get to celebrate anything here. Vesper crossed her arms. Dad just wants to be proud of you. Then he can do it from his driveway, I said, far away from mine. Karen's expression soured. We're family, Noelle. No, I said. You're visitors. Uninvited ones. I opened the door wide and stepped aside. Time to go. They didn't move. I smiled thinly. Either you walk out or I escort you out. Your choice. Karen grabbed Vesper's arm. Come on, she snapped. Bennett lingered a moment, eyes scanning the house like he still wanted to claim it. You're being ridiculous, he said. And you're trespassing, I replied. That did it. They left. Mom came home an hour later and found me tightening the loose handrail. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, handled something. But I knew they weren't done. Not even close. After I kicked them off the property, I expected at least a few weeks of quiet. I should have known better. People like Bennett don't handle being told no, especially not by the kid they spent years pretending didn't exist. 3 days later, my phone rang. Then rang again. Then again. I ignored it. The fourth call went to voicemail. Noelle, Bennett said, his voice soft and practiced. We need to talk. I want to fix things between us. I listened to the message twice. Not because it moved me. Because I was trying to decide whether he was joking or genuinely delusional. He didn't say sorry. He didn't mention my mom. He didn't acknowledge the house, the fund, the years. He just wanted to fix things. Translation, now that I looked successful, he wanted back in the picture. I deleted the voicemail. That same evening, Mom answered a call in the kitchen. I heard her voice tighten immediately. When I walked in, she held the phone away from her ear and mouthed one word. Karen. I raised an eyebrow. Mom shook her head but kept listening. Karen was crying loudly, the dramatic kind, the kind you make sure everyone can hear. I don't know what to do anymore, she sobbed. Bennett is devastated. He's not eating. He just sits there saying Noelle hates him. Mom kept her voice calm. Karen, after everything that happened. We're trying, Talia, Karen cried. Why is Noelle being so cruel? She has everything now, and all Bennett wants is a relationship. I gently took the phone from my mom. All right, I said, let's cut the performance. Her crying stopped instantly. Like someone hit pause. You're not crying for him, I continued. You're crying because the door closed and you weren't expecting it. Silence. You came here uninvited, I said. You tried to take credit. You tried to guilt my mom. That didn't work. So now you're calling her in tears. She sniffed. You're breaking this family. I laughed once. Which family? I asked. Because you three sure as hell aren't part of mine. She hung up. Mom exhaled and sat down. Maybe I shouldn't have answered. You didn't do anything wrong, I said. They just don't like consequences. 2 days later, Vesper went nuclear online. A long post, paragraphs, emojis, drama. Some people don't appreciate the father who raised them. Some people throw away family for money. My dad is hurting, and his daughter doesn't care. Photos followed, her and Bennett on a beach vacation. Captions crafted to make him look fragile and wounded. The comments poured in. Your sister sounds awful. Your dad deserves better. Stay strong, Queen. Briggs read it twice, then handed my phone back. She's like a villain in a teen drama, he said, but somehow worse. I didn't respond. People who manufacture chaos don't deserve an audience. Then she showed up again. I was unloading groceries when I saw her walking down the driveway like she lived there. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. I can't believe you're doing this to Dad, she said immediately. You're ruining everything. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. She shifted, uncomfortable, then tried again. He cries at night. Did you know that? He says he doesn't know what he did wrong. I snorted. He probably means what he got caught doing wrong. Her jaw tightened. Stop acting better than us. I don't have to act, I said. I just am. She glared. Dad wants this family together. You're the only one refusing. I crossed my arms. Vesper, listen carefully. I was 16 when he bailed. He drained my future. He tried to take our home. And you want to blame me for not hugging him on command? You're breaking the family, she said again, frustrated. That man broke the family 12 years before I even knew you existed. Her fists clenched. If you cared about us... I don't, I said calmly, and I don't have to. A car pulled up. Bennett stepped out. Forced calm, tight jaw. Noelle, he said, we need to talk. We really don't. He exhaled sharply. Work is slow, he said. Clients aren't paying, and your sister's tuition... There it was. Money. Vesper was 21 now. Of course this suddenly mattered. You want me to pay for her college? I said flatly. He hesitated, then nodded. Just until things pick back up. You're doing well now. It would mean a lot. I laughed. Not loud. Just enough. You came here begging, I said. After everything you did, you really thought I'd bankroll your new family. Don't talk about them like that, he snapped. What phrasing would you prefer? I asked. The people you built a secret life with while my mom cooked you breakfast? Karen stepped out, trying to smooth it over. Noelle, please. No, I said, pointing toward the street. All of you, out. Vesper glared. Bennett's face twisted. I always knew you'd be ungrateful, he muttered. And I always knew you'd need something from me one day, I replied. Now you have your answer. I opened the gate. Leave. They did. Angry, embarrassed, quiet. When the car disappeared, I went back inside. Mom was unpacking groceries. She looked up. Everything okay? I nodded. Handled. That night, we made dinner together. No yelling, no guilt, no fake tears. Just quiet. And for the first time in my life, it felt earned. Guys, we're so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you're not subscribed yet, please consider it. It really helps us reach that milestone. Thank you for being here.